Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is build a house for the compressor. So since this thing is up against the wall, I decided I would prefab the frames and then bolt the plywood to the frames. So I got the plywood leaning up against the shop here. I got little shims under it to hold it perpendicular, and then I just bolt the frame to it. I put all the braces in there. I make itself a twin, so I have both the left side and the right side, and then I jam it up against the where it goes. Notice I have a little stick there holding it perpendicular, and then I put a little brace across the top. Put a 4x8 sheet of plywood in the back to get everything lined up. Lay out my trusses. Set the radial arm saw to the angle. There we go. We got a truss. Need 2 more of those. There we go. We got a pile of trusses now. And then the reason for the height of the trusses is so that vent would fit in there. So that's what dictated it. Now this is my CAD drawing for the door opening. So that's what we got so far. There's the layout for the door opening. Notice I put radiuses on the top so there's not a stress concentration. See the trusses in there, the door is cut out. Later I'll frame that door and use a router to make it the right size, so I have some gaps in there. Let's see what we got going here. So since this thing is in a pretty confined area, as I showed earlier, I made these prefabbed sides and then set them in place, and then I screwed the 4x8 sheet of plywood to the back of it, which was not an accident. 4 feet, it's already square. And then I cut out this opening for the door, and they cut out left that piece as the door. Still have to put hinges and stuff on, but I haven't done that yet because so now that this thing is kind of a structure that won't fall over, it's got some beams in there and stuff. It doesn't have the A-frame trusses and stuff yet, but it's fine. I want it to move a little bit right now, so I got it all aligned with the pad that I poured a few months back. And so now now this thing is all perpendicular with the pad. So now I'm gonna drill some holes in that sitting on the ground there, that one on the ground there, and the one in the back there. So those will be anchored in the front. Obviously there's nothing there to anchor, so, but I'll put 2 in each. Yeah, these guys. Got my hammer drill over here. So I'll just drill those out, bolt that down, and then everything will be perpendicular and sturdy, and then I can go and build the frame for the back wall. It'll look similar to this. It's really hard to access it because I only made the compressor big enough to, or the house for the compressor big enough to fit the compressor in. Maybe you fit a couple of brooms and rakes and stuff in there maybe, but which might be good for sound deadening. So I'm going to build the frame for the back, and then I've already cut the back panel. Has the notches in it for the trusses. And then once that frame is done, then I'll put the shear panel on here. Anyway, so that's the plan. I'm going to anchor it down now, and then I'll build the inner structure. I also have to put these holes in the vents. I'm going to put these vents in the back to get air to the compressor. So those will be kind of like here, but on the opposite side where the fan is, and then they'll be up here against so one on each side to let the air out, as you know, heat rises and whatnot. So anyway, that's where we're at, and getting everything aligned so I can drill it and put the cement anchors in there. So I anchor both left side and the right side, and the board that's in the back, because I will attach that to the prefabbed frame, and then you can see the holes are already in there. So when I set the thing in place, it's already in the right spot. This is the rest of the bracing in there. I also cut the holes, prefab the holes, and put the vents in. There's the vent holes to get air to the compressor where the fan is, so it doesn't overheat. And these are threaded kind of for wood screws, so I just put some Sharpie on there and held it up against there to mark the holes. And then, yeah, the screws are a little long, so I got my die grinder out and kind of made those so nobody pokes himself in the head. Not that anybody can really fit inside there anyway, but, you know, safety third. It's my motto. And then I wrangled that piece in place and hammered it back down, tightened up the anchors. So now we got like a real structure. Then I'm putting a shear panel on the center truss. The side panels act as a shear panel for the middle one. So now I got all three trusses in there. So now I can put the sheathing on the roof. I got it on one side kind of loose, and then when I put the second piece on, it was obviously a little bit out of square. So if you measure diagonally, you can say it was like an inch off. So I got the old ratchet strap, took all the screws out of the shear panel, straightened it out with the ratchet strap, and then put it back together with screws in there, and that held it straight. I got the second, part of the shear panel for the roof on there, but since I only got one piece of 4x8 sheet of plywood for the entire roof, I had to cut this little 7-inch section out of a triangle, right? But it was enough. I catted it out before I started this, and I knew it was enough, so I just had to cut that little piece out and add it in. It's not as good as if it was another piece of plywood, but plywood's expensive, so now was the part I was dreading, was taking these 5-inch or so sections out of all four sides of the shear panels, and then taking a router and making them nice and smooth and crisp sides, which it turned out really nice, but you end up getting really sawdust and sneezy, and it's the right way to do it, but it's messy and you're breathing a lot of sawdust for a while, so especially in the close confines. But I was able to get up in the eaves and stuff and make nice little radiuses in there, so it turned out pretty nice. And then it was time to put the vents in, so I had to saw the holes in here because I didn't prefab those holes like a dummy. I should have done that. I put these on the outside because I didn't want leaves to get caught in the upward aiming vents. And then I hung the door. This one I also prefabbed with the braces and all that stuff in there. And I also made it like a 1/2 inch narrower than the opening was, so then I could use the router and trim basically a 1/4 inch gap all the way around it, which ended up working out pretty good. You can see the inner structure that I came up with for the door to try and triangulate it so it doesn't droop after sitting in the sun and cold and whatever. And then everybody's favorite part of any project is wrestling up all the tools you drug out to your work area and putting them away. Okay, so it's time to roof D-Mac's house. First thing I'm going to do is get the inlet alignment up here, sprinkle it down, then I'll put the flashing on, and then put the tiles on. so I got all the flashing nailed down. So one thing that you have to take into consideration is over here on the eaves where there's nothing, the nails pop through. They stick out a little bit, so I just took some nippers and chopped the end of the nail off, so it's kind of flush now. Not perfect, but good enough for me. Okay, so one thing I need to mention is you can't start your row with a real shingle. What you have to do is cut this part of the shingle off, and then this goes down here. So the reason you do that, there's an overlap that you can't have the end at the same place every time. So if I just put this shingle on and put another one here, there would be nothing sealing here. So what you have to do is cut this shingle in half, right about where this white line is, and then you put that on the outer edge, and then you overlap the shingle to that. And then you do the same thing over here to finish the end off, and then you make the overlap not be in the same spot. So let's say this is here. This one will be over here, and then this will protect this area here where there's a splice. And you just keep doing that all the way up. You never want to, you just have to think like your gravity. Never give the water a free path into your house. So that's how you do it. And then when you get to the top, you don't, like you're throwing half of this tile away. Not really, because you used it at the top. And I'll show you that later. So it isn't really any wasted material. It's just utilized in a different way. So we'll use those guys. Those guys later. And then this here is like where the nails go, in this little tarry area, and then that makes the nail seal against the asphalt tile a little bit. So multiple paths of destruction. And I like to have I guess everybody has their own idea, but I like to have the tile hang over the flashing, you know, a quarter of an inch or so. I've seen people do it 0, I've seen people do it more. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason why anybody does it any which way, but that's how I do it. Okay, So I got this all done. The other side is done as well. And then earlier I mentioned that parts that we lift this up here. There's a half a tile under there, and that we were gonna not throw it away. So this is essentially the same thing that we put on for the first bottom layer, and then we put all these subsequent layers on top of it. So the water just cascades over it, and it has like 6 inches of overlap in there. So water just comes flying down. But we got to do something with the top, and this one's just happened to be like this wrapped over the top anyway. Like this wrapped over the top of that, so that really isn't going to leak, except for there's a seam here and another one on the other side over there. So we gotta make sure that doesn't have a leak path. So this is what you do. You take the leftover pieces that I said you were going to use earlier, and you cut them to the length. Depends on the pitch of your roof and how far these are away, but from that little edge there, which is where all these guys line up, to make it look nice and symmetrical, and your eyeballs will pick it up if it's not, so do it. So I just measured from this little spot here to the subsequent spot on the other side, which in this case was just under 12 inches, so I just cut a bunch of these out 12 inches. And then you start from the edge and you make them equally spaced. Again, your eyeball will tell you if they're screwed up. I ended up doing an overlap of 2 1/4 inches, but no magic to it. You could do, 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 2 3/4 inches, doesn't matter. As long as it has some overlap. But you want to make them even, otherwise your eyeball will jump out and tell you that looks like shit. So anyway, I got these laid out how they're going to go. So you start from this edge, you put the nails in here, one on each side, and then you put this one on, nail here, like that, and then you start from here. And when you get done, you got a nail here, 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 here. And then you just put another one, which I'm probably just going to use this on the top. And this one's not really, it's just going to lay like that, just to cap it off. And I may shorten it to make it so it's the same color as this. And there'll be a couple of nails in there, but the nails will be down here, so there's plenty of layers of roofing material that'll keep it from leaking. So again, I'm not a professional roofer, but I've done some roofs in my time, and none of them leaked. That's my head knocking. So anyway, this is the way you do it. It's, not a small scale, obviously. I used one, not even one, whatever this is called, bundle, I guess. Okay, so there it is. So there's some little floppy gaps in there here and there, but when it gets hot and cold and gravity takes over, that'll shrink in. Doesn't really match this roof that good, but it'll fill up with leaves, and then it will be. I did put the slope a little bit higher than this, so hopefully the leaves will shed a little bit better. But oh, by the way, if you have a skid steer, it makes a really good platform to stand on to film. Highly recommend it. Unless you aren't very coordinated, then don't do it, especially holding a camera. Anyway, if you like some of the content on this channel, not all of it, but some of it, yeah, poke on that subscribe button and share it with your friends. Whatever, helps the algorithm out. Not big on algorithms, but it helps it out. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.